The path begins only for those who choose it. Subscribe now if you wish to walk in silence, and tell me below what truth you seek or what chaos you wish to still. Every word you leave is a stone laid upon your own path. The scroll of stillness. Long ago, before the last bell of the mountain temples faded into cloud, there was said to exist a single scroll, inked by a nameless monk. No one remembered his face, nor the sound of his voice. Only the whisper of the paper remained, brittle, fragrant, with cedar smoke and age. It was discovered beneath a collapsed altar, sealed in a clay vessel, untouched by centuries. Its words carried no author's name. At the top only a symbol, a circle drawn in one breath. Within it, a single line. He who conquers silence conquers the self. The rest of the parchment told not a story, but a descent, a path through the many rooms of quietude. Each verse, each parable spoke of the same threshold, the place where sound ends and truth begins. Chapter 1. The Sound of the Mind. Chapter 1. The Sound of the Mind. Before a man enters silence, he believes it is empty. He imagines quiet as an absence of voice, of noise, of life. He's wrong. Silence is not absence. It is presence too vast for words. It hums beneath the skin like the pulse of the world. When the novice first sits upon the mat, the world outside dims, but within him raises 1,000 echoes. Old conversations, remembered arguments, songs of the market, the cry of his own desires demanding attention. He lifts his gaze to the paper wall, and within its grain he begins to see shapes, faces, regrets, shadows that never left. Then he understands the first law of the path. Before you may quiet the world, you must hear it screaming within you. For what men call peace is not the lack of noise, but mastery over it. The master once said to his disciple, "Stillness is not silence of the ears, but silence of the demand to speak." And so the first lesson begins, not in serenity, but in chaos made visible. Chapter those, the gate of withdrawal. In Chapter 2, the gate of withdrawal, the 5th day of the novice's seclusion. His tongue aches to form words. His throat tightens as if strangled by the weight of his own restraint. He begins to dream of laughter, of conversation, of calling his own name aloud. The master sees him tremble and says, "Do you miss the world, or do you miss the echo of yourself within it?" For the second gate is this withdrawal, not from people nor from duty, but from the addiction of constant declaration. Men cling to speech as a lantern against the dark. They fear that if they do not speak, they will vanish. Yet, only when the voice dies can the true self be heard. The monks of the Eastern halls sealed their mouths with linen for 40 days. By the 3rd, they heard their hearts beating in the silence like drums. By the 10th, they could sense the wind's direction by the movement of dust upon the floor. By the 40th, they no longer distinguish between breath and world. To withdraw is not to retreat, it is to return to origin. The master wrote upon the lintel of his chamber, "Noise is a habit. Silence is a choice, but only the brave remember to choose." And thus, the novice crossed the gate of withdrawal, entering the long corridor where the self begins to fade. Chapter 3. The Discipline of Stillness. Chapter 3. The Discipline of Stillness. Those who reach the 3rd chamber believe silence is one once noise is gone. They are mistaken. Noise may end, yet restlessness remains. The body itches to move, the mind to wander, the breath to hasten toward distraction. Thus begins the discipline of stillness. The old texts say the master sat, unmoving for 7 winters. Snow buried his hut until it became part of the mountain. Travelers mistook it for a stone shrine, and only when the thaw came did they see his eyes still open, his body thin as reeds, but his gaze bright as dawn. When asked how he endured such immobility, he replied, "I did not endure stillness. Stillness endured me." To master silence, one must also master the rebellion of flesh, the itch on the arm, the hunger that disguises boredom, the endless debate between body and will. Each is a test, not of strength, but of surrender. For true stillness is not frozen muscle. It is a mind so calm that even motion becomes gentle. A master once taught his disciple to hold a cup of water until it ceased to ripple. The boy waited for the wind to stop, but it never did. At last, he breathed slowly until the ripples faded on their own. The master said, "When the wind outside obeys the calm within, you've learned the first silence." Thus, discipline is not the act of forcing the world still. It is the art of ceasing to disturb it. Chapter 4. Chapter 4. The Mirror of the Voice. Mirror of the voice. In the fort chamber lies a mirror blackened with age and smoke. The monks call it the listener's face. Those who gaze upon it after days of silence see something unsettling. Their own mouth still as stone, their eyes reflecting a question that has no words. Once a novice named E begged the master to allow him speech. "I have seen visions in the dark," he said, "and my silence burns." The master handed him the mirror and said, "Speak here." E spoke to his reflection. He confessed his doubts, his hunger, his longing to be seen. And as he spoke, his image trembled in the glass, distorted by his breath. He tried to wipe the fog away, but it returned with every exhale. Finally, exhausted, he whispered, "I cannot see myself." The master replied, "Then speak no more. Voice that hides your reflection is not your enemy. It is your shadow. Until the tongue rests, the truth cannot be clear." From that day he took a vow of silence. He bowed to all who spoke, and his bowed head became his language. The monks say that years later, when he finally looked again into the mirror, the glass reflected not his face, but the entire chamber, the lantern, the dust, the mountain wind, for he had become transparent, and silence had taught him how to see. Chapter 5. The storm in the Chapter 5. The storm and the bell. Even the silent must face the storm. One night, lightning struck the cedar above the monastery. Flames climbed the bark like serpents of gold. Wind screamed through the prayer holes, tearing away scrolls and vows alike. The novices ran to save what they could, all except one, who remained seated in meditation as the fire approached. When the master found him later, smoke in his hair and ash upon his robe, he asked, "Were you not afraid?" The monk replied, "The storm outside cannot hear my fear. Only the storm within can burn me." For the fifth lesson of silence is this: the world will always roar, but only the untrained echo it. When thunder shatters the valley, the monks of the high temple ring their bell, not to answer the sky, but to remind the heart that harmony can exist even amidst destruction. Every strike of the bell is deliberate, as if saying to the heavens, "We too can make thunder, but ours brings peace." So it is with emotion. Anger, fear, and desire are not to be silenced by force, for forced silence is a prison. Instead, they are to be transformed like thunder guided through the bronze throat of a bell. In this, silence becomes not escape, but alchemy. It refines what is wild into what is wise. The master taught, when the fire comes, do not hide your calm. Let the fire see it and bow. Chapter 6. The Listener's Path. The Listener's Path. There is a saying in the Temple of Halloween: silence has two sides. One listens, one speaks. After many years of practice, the monks learn that silence is not emptiness. It is hearing so deeply that even the unseen becomes audible. They hear the weight of dawn before the light, the cry of bamboo bending under snow, the hum of their own blood whispering its slow chant of life. In such listening, time changes shape. Moments stretch and dissolve, until the listener forgets where one breath ends and another begins. This is the listener's path, the threshold where awareness replaces thought. A Trafula once came to the monastery weary from wars and commerce. He mocked the monk, saying, "Your silence changes nothing in the world." The eldest monk poured him tea. When the traveler raised the cup, he saw the reflection of his own face. Trembling on the surface, the monk whispered, Silence changes nothing. But in silence, you see what needs no change. The traveler did not understand. He left that night, but the wind carried the monk's words for miles, and somewhere on the road, he began to hear his own steps differently. Each one a beat of a drum he had never noticed before. He walked slower, tense-stubbed, and for the first time in years, the war inside him grew quiet. For this is the way of the listener. To hear truth is to be changed, even when the tongue remains still. Chapter 7. Chapter 7. Chapter 7. The second silence, the ancients taught that there are two silences. The first is made of sound, withdrawn. The second of self. The first can be learned through discipline, through stillness, restraint, and ritual. The second arrives when the seeker no longer seeks. When the master grew old, he ceased teaching. He sat beneath the pine tree each morning, eyes open, hands resting on his knees. The younger monks waited for instruction, but he said nothing. One dawn, as mist rolled across the valley, a disciple approached and asked, "Master, what is left to learn after silence?" The old monk smiled faintly. He lifted his hand and pointed toward the fog. No bird sang, no wind stirred. Yet in that hush, the disciple heard something vast, not a sound, but the feeling of being heard by the world itself. Then he understood. The second silence is not mine to make. It is the world finally speaking without words. Epilogue. The dangerous gift. The final lines of the recovered manuscript are smudged by moisture and time, but enough can be read to suggest a warning. Silence is a blade. In untrained hands, it wounds. In disciplined hands, it heals. Those who walked this path were changed in ways that frightened others. Their eyes carried calm that unsettled the ambitious. Their words came few and slow. Yet when they spoke, the room stilled as if mountains had leaned closer to listen. Villagers called them ghosts, for their presence made noise seem foolish. Children followed them in awe. Kings avoided their gaze, for the truly silent mirror, the truth, and few can bear to see it. The scroll ends as it began, with a circle drawn in one breath. Beneath it, a final inscription in smaller hand. The he who walks this path will lose his voice, only to discover that the world has been speaking through him all along. This is the dangerous art, not to silence the world, but to become the silence within it.